Hello, this is National Chess Master Rats at chess.com. I'm here to continue my video series on the correspondence team match between my video lessons group and CARPE DIEM. There's a 210 board match, and we're leading right now 141.5 to like 44.5. It's turning into a rout, and I do believe my team is motivated by the fact if they win their games, they get a video made. So, all's fair in love and war, they say. Anyway, this was played on board 187 to 210, and we have a high 1500 rating versus low 1400. And let's have a look at the game. And Scandinavian defense. Usually White does some push at e5. Now, the interface has been doing funny things today. I was giving a lesson earlier, and it kept taking moves back and doing things. Hopefully they get these bugs worked out. But Black now plays a very interesting move, knight c6. And after d4, he can go right into the Nimzovich that I've been playing with bishop f5, or even f6 is playable. But Black decides to go into a whoops. Look at this thing's doing. Okay, I'm playing a move and it just backs it up. Okay, a6. Now, I'm sorry, David 100. This is a terrible move. Okay, and you're going to do it on the other side of the board. I've talked about it in a lot of my videos. Do not move your rook pawns up to these squares. Okay. Do not. You do not need to worry about your opponent either getting a pin on your knight or planting a knight on that square and threatening. Look at this. Threatening a potential fork on c7. Okay, these moves waste a tempo when you could be developing a piece. It keeps in. You can't see the little icons. This connection interrupted. Reconnecting. Boy. And my connection is rock solid. I'm not losing my connection. Okay, anyway. They also weaken your pawn structure. G6 becomes weaker. B6 becomes weaker. You're not developing pieces. If you don't develop pieces, it's like giving your opponent a 20-yard head start in a short race. Okay, you can't do it. All right. But bishop f5 goes right into mainline Nimzovich. Now you shouldn't be in trouble because of this move, but you're going to have a hard time getting going here if you're giving your opponent so much leeway by getting his pieces out. It's going to be harder to win a game. Now e6, now you're shutting your bishop in, and even a6 looks even more bad now because how is this bishop ever going to get into play? It could have been developed right to f5. And so what if White trades it? You're getting rid of you have these pawns on light squares. Black has pawns on dark squares. You have a great bishop left over against a bad bishop. Okay. If you look at my introduction video on the Nimzovich defense, you get some of the ideas with this. Anyway, and here it comes h6. Just terrible move. And I'm not trying to insult you. I'm just trying to drill it in your head. You don't want to play these moves. White's not going to do anything if he sticks anything on g5. He's not. Okay, trust me. And you're falling behind in development. If I had White here, I would fully be expecting to win this game. And now here's a wasted move. Knight b4. Okay. It's nice to win a bishop for a knight in some situations, but not at the price of development. White now commits a blunder. Okay, White plays a3. What's wrong with a3? Well, it's obvious what Black is trying to do is take this bishop. Okay, let him. Develop. Okay, castle. Now, let him take the bishop. Now, look what's happened here. White has 3 pieces developed and has castled. Black has absolutely nothing developed, except he's got a weak set of pawns on both sides of the board. Okay? What's Black going to do next? I don't know. C5, that doesn't develop a piece, but it's something he needs to play at some point. Okay? When and where is this bishop that he was so hell-bent on getting the advantage of the bishop pair? When is this bishop going to help him? The answer is it isn't. Okay, so this was a strategically bad error, and White just basically lost the tempo by playing a3. Let him take it. If he wants to take it, let him take it. Develop something. Okay, so, but guess what? White still has the better game here. Okay, but the difference is White isn't castled, and he could have been. And knight e7. Okay, now in the Nimzovich defense, this knight belongs on f5. This is a great square. A lot of other similar situations, French defense, which this is relating to, that's where the knight goes. You don't worry about g5. You have knight h4, and suddenly, or if knight takes h4, the queen takes back on h4, and you've got reasonable attacking chances. Although you're missing one of your knights that might have come in handy, coming back over and getting into the game because you traded it off, and this bishop isn't helping. But knight f5 is the square for the knight. And another rule, you want to break in the direction your pawn chain points. Okay. Here's white's pawn chain. That means this is, or black's pawn chain. This is the break. Okay. c5. When is it going to come? Well, maybe it's preparing it now because the bishop's clear. But what white wants to do is break here. So that's all the more reason to get this knight on f5 to occupy that square and deprive white of what the masters have already figured out is the correct way to play these positions. If you don't play the correct way, well, okay, you're all right, but you'll have a harder time getting anywhere. And you wonder why, why games stay very level for so long. Both of you are capable of making good moves, but if you can't find the good moves, it's because they're not there when you play a kind of sterile position. Now here white commits a mistake, immediately weakens c4. That's a fine outpost for a knight. If black can get one there, well, it's not so easy. But anyway, we'll forgive him for that. Now the bishop gets developed, but black still isn't castled. a4. So white's got a territory advantage, but a4 just drops a pawn flat out. I like white here. White's got the better game, but white needs to be playing for f4, f5. That means remaneuver the knight. Maybe the knight can hop over to b3 and then try to anchor itself in on c5. And if b6 comes, well, it comes. At least try to restrain black from playing c5 as long as you can. But get your f4, f5 break in. So a4 just hangs a pawn. How can people hang pawns in postal chess? I don't understand. Correspondence chess. Well, it's because you're playing it online and you're treating it as an over-the-board game. That's why. It's not. And I'm dedicating myself to showing you guys how to play correspondence chess the way it was played when they knew what they were doing. Online chess says they didn't really tell you to take your time. Okay. h3. Okay. So, here we are, move 13. Black still hasn't castled, and white's lead in development isn't so marked as it once was. White's only a tempo ahead. If black were to develop his queen, forget about losing the pawn. I'm just saying if black were to develop his queen, he's only a tempo behind. So black's a tempo and a half behind. And he does castle, and white needs to get his rooks into play. See, these rooks aren't doing anything. You lost a pawn, use the open file, okay? Get ready for this f4, f5 break. At least that's what appears white is getting ready to do. But now I think black kind of makes a little mistake here. See, black never played for the c5 break. It was within his means to do it earlier. He could play c5 right here. Instead, he chose to take this knight. He went after the bishop here, then he gives it back and gets rid of his good bishop. Remember, this was a good bishop. It's attacking the pawns. But anyway, f5 is going to create a weakness on e6. And there it is. Now, e5 is also an outpost. The knight's not quite ready to go there, but white's no longer looking for f4, f5. White's looking to control the e5 square. Black should be trying to break e5 and get rid of that ugly pawn. Okay, so now knight g4. Okay, that makes sense. It temples the rook and gets ready to go into e5. But I think he goes in a little too quick. The first question to ask, is black threatening to play e5? And the answer is no, he isn't, because white has 3 attackers on that square. This would have been a time to do what I've been saying, get the rooks in play. Black should want to be trying to take back, or white should want to take back on e5 with a piece and keep this pawn backward and exposed. This gives black a chance to cover up that weakness. That's why knight e5 is not correct. Now this weakness is no longer as vulnerable as it once was. Okay, you want a knight in on e5. Although, arguably, if the knights do come off, what's white going to attack it with? Because black has a light squared bishop, but still, it ties the bishop down. Open file ties that bishop down, reduces its mobility. Okay, so now c6, shutting his bishop in, weakening more squares on the queen side. Okay. Rook c8. So no, not much is happening here. Black's ahead of pawn, but what's this bishop? When is this bishop going to get in the game? Now he's got some possibility to get it active. Okay, now you got the c5 move in. Here comes white's counterattack. But white's doing this without complete development. See, this rook is still sitting there undeveloped. This rook has never moved, although you could argue it is developed where it's at. But what about thinking about bringing the rook here? The idea of running it over to the king side. Okay, let's move forward. Bishop d2, c4. Now this bishop is going to get a gray square, but I think black starts moving his pawn just a little too quickly. d3 just gives a protected pass pawn, and it does give back the e3 square, but you're going to lose that anyway. But he takes. He's got a combination in mind. He wants to win a pawn. Okay, and there it is. He wins a pawn. So it worked out. You can still play bishop c6, and now this bishop that was so bad earlier is now sprung to life. And this bishop, which was always white's bishop, bad's bishop, has never gotten going. This pawn is in the way. Okay. Queen e2. And this is going to cost more material. There goes this. And the game's pretty much over. It doesn't need much comment. Now there's a pin. And pile up on the pin piece. And they play a few more moves, and they really don't require any comment. See, there's nothing going on here. It's just going to be a quick mate. And at this point, white decided that I'm going to lose, and he gave up. Okay, so much for that game. Let's move on to the other one. And going to learn something about the endgame here. Let's flip the board. Look at us doing it. I didn't do anything. I was just pushing the forward arrow, and I was moving them back and forth and back and forth. Crazy. Fix the server. Okay. Before I show what happened here, let's look at one side variation that pretty much everybody should know. If you don't know these openings, you need to look them up. The two knights defense. Now, there's many ways to play this, but the good old fried liver attack. And I'm not going to here prove or disprove why this is good or bad, or why you should or shouldn't play it or allow it. I'm just pointing this variation out. And theory goes on and on about this as to what's going to happen, and I'm going to leave that to you to look at. But let's just store this position in our memory banks for a minute and watch what happens. Okay. Now, here black commits a blunder. He brings his knight back where it came, and white plays a very strong move. And now look at that knight. It's like a yo-yo. The knights move back and forth. Now, what's happened? It's now white's move. So let's look at two things here. This is a point I like to make when somebody moves a piece back and forth. After white castled, this was the position. After black puts the knight back on d5, this is the position. What's changed? Let's look at this again. What's changed? Here it's black's move, and here it's white's move. So in effect, what black has done is black has gone from this position and said, I'll tell you what, I know I know it's your I know it's my move, okay? I know it's my move as black, but I don't want to move. I'm going to make a deal with you. I'll give you 2 moves in a row, provided one of them, the first one, is knight g5. If you do that, I'll give you 2 moves in a row. And in fact, that's what happens, because now it's this position. See the change? There's White's first move, and now White plays the second move. Now I asked you to look back and remember something. I set up the fried liver attack. And here, if White knew the book line, he would know the proper move is just play here. But there's a big difference now. The big difference is this pawn is up on d3. The next difference is this king is castled. Now this position takes on whole new ramifications, because White can get this bishop out. If Black brings his king out, he's in big trouble. And I'll leave that for you to analyze. Imagine a 2 knights defense. And remember, we're talking about giving somebody free moves out of the opening. Let's look at this. Let's compare this position with the one I set up earlier. Do you see that? You see the difference? Black's position didn't change, but White got 2 free tempos. And again, that's the result of those 2 free moves. And let's look at it again. Here's the position in the 2 knights. Here's the position that could have been in our game. Okay? 2 free tempos that Black allowed, and White didn't see it. Do you understand the 2 knights defense? Knight take the fried liver attack. This is why knowing the books and looking these things up is a good way to improve your chess. White is virtually winning here, and I'm not going to prove why. Leave that to you. But after knight takes and king takes, after this queen check, Black's just going to have to play a pawn down, retreat the king and lose this knight, and hang on for dear life, and it may not last long. So White got his 2 free moves that I talked about earlier, and after knight d5, he didn't play knight takes f7. He played f4. Oops, hit the wrong button. He played f4. Okay, now let's see how this transpires. Now it comes out and threatens mate. Black stops that. Brings the queen back. Gets rid of that pesky knight. Now White has threats. Threats on f7 and threats on d5. So Black finds the one resource he has, protects his knight and protects the mate. And I think White's starting to get overextended here. I think Black's starting to get the better game now. See, everything White developed, he's traded. He developed a knight and a bishop, right? In his first 3 moves. They've been traded. The queen's come off the board. It's true White's castled, but his attack is over. Black hasn't castled. White's queen side is undeveloped. That pawn on f6 could become a target. Let's go forward. Okay, now White's getting his development done. But now, got to pretty much take it off, or that knight's very powerful. Now, should Black take with the rook? He could, but this is fine. Now, here Black commits another mistake. It's one of these things, don't make exchanges that develop your opponent's pieces. He in fact, brings this rook up to the square and allows Black to double rooks. So this is a mistake. This is costing Black, and White loves it. Now he's ready to double rooks. Now here comes another mistake from Black. He never tried to work on play on this pawn. That would have given him good possibilities. Now White's going to achieve what he wants. He's got doubled rooks, and now Black goes for his counterplay. But because White has these active rooks that Black allowed and created, White's standing very well here. And now he's going to win this f7 pawn. And now it's interesting what happens over the next several moves. Okay, White has won a pawn, and he's got 2 pawns forked. White's going to keep winning a pawn, and Black's going to keep winning one back. A lot of the pawns are going to disappear. Let's see if how long this was the correct strategy, and then how do you continue when the position gets simpler. Okay, so right now we're going to go into a pawn chop here. There goes a pawn, there goes a pawn. White's still forking 2 pawns. Which one should he take? This is a good question. If you take the one on a7, you're up 2 pawns on the queen side, and the king side remains neutral, and you're still threatening a pawn on h7. But I think the correct pawn to take was the a7 pawn. This gives white 2 pawn majorities, however. Now black decides to hold on to that pawn, but what can happen in the long run when you allow 2 pawn majorities is you end up with only 1 passed pawn on each side of the board, and if one can be won by the defending side, the other one may follow. It may not. It's tough. If you're going to be down a pawn, you want it to be in a rook and pawn ending. But unfortunately, black is down 2 pawns, so black's playing catch up here. But I think it's better to try to get 2 connected passed pawns rather than 2 distant separated passed pawns. But white's still for choice. White's rook's on the 7th, dominating the board. And here I think a good move would just simply be b3. If black wants to make his rook inactive, fine. If not, this pawn is going to fall. So I think white grabbed too quick here. As I said, a lot of pawns come off. But white does have the game in hand, and we'll see. There's nothing wrong with what he did. He's got a 3-pawn advantage and a completely winning game. But what's remarkable that's going to happen is white proceeds to misfire and doesn't play this game accurately, and gives black all kinds of chances. You wouldn't think black would have any chance here at all, but white allowed him the chance. Now, how did that happen? Well, let's look at it move by move. Okay, what does black have in compensation for 3 pawns? Well, you're looking at it right there, the rook on d2. It's on the 7th rank. Now, for white to win this game, the simple method, he starts out with h4, is advance the pawn. Got to get the pawns right if they're going to become a queen. Black does have some compensation, not much. He's got an active king. But here white misfires and virtually makes it close to impossible or very technical to win this game. The correct move is simply king h2, followed by king h3 and g4, and your king escorts the pawns up. Or put the king in front, but get the king active. That is the correct strategy. Instead, white starts running his pawns. Now look at his king. He's put his king in a prison that he can't escape from without giving something up. In other words, this rook's got to have to come over and help out. That gives up a passed pawn. It should still be a win for white, but it's not as easy. And white continues to misfire. He starts advancing his pawns where you think they become stronger, they actually become weaker. The way it goes anyway. You see, here goes another one. The correct move to make here, again, was give up this pawn, get this rook back in the game where it can help. Someone's Skyping me, I'll have to talk to him later. Get the rook back in where it can help. These pawns will win, but you're going to have to get your king into the game. And watch what goes wrong here for white. Okay, now it looks like he's made some progress. He's got his pawns up to the 7th rank, or the 5th rank. He's got the king constrained to the back rank, but he needs to do one more little trick here. And here comes his trick. And now, just like that, he's defending the pawn. But there's a problem here that he didn't anticipate. And the problem will become apparent here in a moment. So now white has the right idea. Let's get the king in the game. And what's black going to do? Well, the laws of chess say you can't move your king. That means you move your rook. And you got to keep moving your rook. So let's just go offer you a rook. Whoops. Look what white's gotten himself into. What a pickle. Okay? If you take that rook, the game's a draw. It's a stalemate. So black plays, let's follow the king. Take me. And white has to start running. And here, black should just keep trying it. But I would think that white would have learned what black is trying to do here. You got to think, look, I'm 2 pawns ahead. I've gotten him too far advanced. Let me release the stalemate. Because he doesn't release the stalemate, watch what happens. Maybe he thinks he can run and get out of the stalemate. But watch what happens. Check. And, uh-oh. Now black's got a draw. Stalemate. So, snatching a draw from the jaws of defeat. Black played it well at the end. White didn't. So what should white do? Let's release a stalemate. Now it should be a routine win. What's black going to do? If you check here, now you're stuck on the back rank, and white should win this pretty easily. It should be a theoretical win. Let's start with rook here. Okay, that should do it. And little tricky. But it's in the ending books. What other ways could white win this after rook a8, a rook a7? What was I playing? You could probably even get away with g6 here. Wait, no, not yet. It's black's move. I was playing. No. Come on, go to the right. Go forward. There we go. So rook a7. What was I playing for black? I was checking. Well, let's just go attack the rook. Okay. Now where are you going to put the rook? Back here. Okay. White should be winning this pretty easily. You don't want to check him because then the king gets very potent, and you're not going to get this king out of this square. So this should be a routine win for white, but it didn't end up that way. Anyway, I'm trying to help everyone improve. That's why I'm showing you these errors that people are making. Moving the rook pawns to keep pieces out of the knight 5 squares using English descriptive notation doesn't do you any good. Okay, let them come, and chances are they may even do that. And then don't play these moves, these games quick, and don't give your opponent such activity on the 7th rank. Okay. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I got a lot of videos to make. You guys are playing a little too quick, and I'll catch up. But I thank you so much for watching and look forward to making another video. Take care.